Hi, I'm Paulina Dzidziak, and I've got a very special guest today. The voice behind the legendary hero of Dying Light the Following, and new upcoming title Dying Light the Beast. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Roger Craig Smith. Hi Roger, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing well, Paulina. Thank you. I'm doing very well, actually. Thank you.
Good to hear that.
How are you?
Very excited.
Good.
I'm very excited. And so I'm excited because our fans had opportunity to see our announcement trailer during opening night live, and it was absolutely great to see their reactions. And I hope you're hyped too.
Oh, of course. Are you kidding me? We're back. We're back.
That you're back as a legendary hero.
Yes.
So where has Kyle been for all of these years?
I was going to ask you guys that, but apparently, well, believe me, for about the last 9 years, I've been wondering, what happened to Kyle? So for 13 years, he was being experimented on brutally, and he's out for revenge in Dying Light the Beast. But I guess there's far more details that I would love to get into, but I can't, and everyone will have to experience it for themselves, as you well know.
So, well, it's been the decade, actually.
Yeah.
Since you've been a voice actor for Kyle Crane. So, how was it to be back?
Amazing. And honestly, throughout the years, I've had fans come up to me at fan conventions and that kind of thing, say, do you think he's ever going to come back? And I'm like, I mean, spoiler alert, did you see what happened to him at the end? And so I was always kind of thinking, no, that was just a one and done kind of a gig. And then you guys reached out, and I know so many things that none of you know. And seeing what you guys had created for the Beast was just was exciting. So it's very surreal, and it's a trip to be older and revisiting things that you've done at a certain time in your career, and then revisiting what it was like to be younger, and remembering what that was, and now to be coming back to this, it's a real treat, because it's not something that happens all the time in this industry. So I'm thrilled, and I hope everybody enjoys what we're doing.
And speaking of older, Kyle is older as well.
Yes.
So did anything change for him?
Well, yes. This is. I don't want to say like Dying Light 1 was a happy-go-lucky Kyle, but he was maybe more reactive and maybe more just sort of present in what he was experiencing, and would kind of talk about it rather profanely, I guess, in real time as he was experiencing things that the player would be experiencing. And this Kyle is a little more seasoned, a little more grizzled, and a little, dare I say, angrier, and out for revenge.
He's been through a lot.
Yes, he's been through a tremendous amount, and I think that was the sort of fascinating element for me, was to see the direction you guys were taking this character now, and where I still kind of want to lean on maybe some of the more snarky quips. This Kyle is still there, but he's a little more focused, and he's a little more diligent in his pursuits, and maybe not quite as jovial by comparison to the Dying Light 1 Kyle Crane, or the Kyle Crane of 10 years ago.
That's
or 13 years ago in the game, I should say, right? Yeah. We're breaking the fourth wall here.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And can you tell us a little bit more, because in the trailer we saw that Kyle has a special ability, what's going on with these red eyes?
So I would obviously make the joke about pink eye or something like that, but I don't think it's that. No, that's going to be an element to something that I think players are really going to enjoy visiting. I have to be very careful about what I'm going to say here, so that we don't spoil anything for people. But Kyle has some added components to him, if you will, or maybe another version of his personality that can be tapped into. That might be a part of the name of the game itself, and I think that's what you guys were teasing with that little component of the eye there in the trailer. So I have to be so careful. You guys tell me you want me to do these interviews, and then you tell me I can't say all these things, but there's so much stuff that's coming. So yeah.
Okay, so what was the hardest part of being a voice actor for Kyle Crane in Dying Light the Beast, and what was the most fun part?
Oh gosh. Just the hardest part. Well, no, this is a challenge because, like I say, I go back to the earlier version of Kyle that I remembered playing, and it's kind of like hard to break those habits. And even though it's later in the timeline, and it's later in my life as well as Kyle's, I guess the hardest part was just trying to like hone in on, and we were all working on trying to find like this version of the character that would still feel like it's Kyle, but Kyle 13 years later, and Kyle after having gone through unbelievable trauma, torture, experimentation, and yet not losing those little flavors of Kyle that I think are what resonate with fans and with players. So it's not the hardest part. Really and truly, just the hardest part is just screaming and yelling for video games in general. And obviously Kyle being Kyle, there's no shortage of that. But I would say the most enjoyable part is just the writing is always such a blast. Getting to revisit this character and getting to be a part of this world again, and especially with this amazing sort of like standalone kind of, it's its own world. And what was really neat to see is how you guys craft in a very crafty way, built something that was just going to be, you don't have to know Kyle Crane of old, you don't have to know Dying Light 2, that if you just start with this, you're going to get hooked, and you're going to want to go back and play 1 and 2 as well. But that it also kind of serves as a nice tie-in between those two games. And so, yeah, that was an enjoyable thing, is just kind of constantly going, oh, you guys, you worked that in, you figured that out, that's really cool. And he's just a fun character. Like, I really enjoy playing Kyle Crane. He's a very, very fun, sort of like at times when he's put upon and when he just reacts in kind of a sarcastic way. I've always enjoyed that about Kyle, because it feels real. That feels, it's not just some superhero who is never fazed by things. Kyle can very much be fazed. The old Kyle was very much fazed. This Kyle, not fazed anywhere near as much. Yeah, he's angry. He's out for revenge.
Do you have any cool stories or behind-the-scenes stories?
I do. Most of them are things that we can't even talk about. It's always the case with voice acting, is that there's the fun stuff, the stuff that actually takes place that we enjoy, is stuff that you don't want to repeat on camera, and it would probably ruin the character or ruin the game for people. But no, I would say just my gosh, going back to Dying Light 1 was just having so much fun with a lot of those lines of dialogue. I found it to be actually very like cathartic. It was like a release as somebody who was like at the time living in LA and having to deal with like LA traffic. Getting to just scream and yell and curse like that felt like I was getting it all out of my system. No, as far as behind the scenes stuff or like fun stuff, it's like, no, that's gonna stay with me.
Okay.
That's I'll hold on to those things.
Another secret, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't want to tell anybody. That's for me to enjoy.
Okay, but any favorite quotes from Dying Light?
Oh gosh, that we can say on camera without using the F word. Probably not. I always, in fact, when I do autographs for anything, when fans will bring like a copy of the game or that kind of thing, or they bring like posters or that kind of thing, it's the only autograph out of all the work that I've ever done that I allow cursing on, just because Kyle Crane tends to be very flowery with his language. So no, I would just. You guys would have to bleep it out anyway, but it would probably just be one good cathartic F-bomb. I've been going back and listening to some of the early stuff that we had done, and thank goodness there's like YouTube videos that feature like all of the voice lines kind of thing, and I crack up at listening to something like, yeah, that was the way I said that F word was pretty good. I liked the way I said that F word. That was a good F-bomb. Like so yeah, it would be that.
Okay, so you already told us that Kyle was captivated for 13 years.
Yeah.
So do you think he will be able to adapt to this new world?
You know what? Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, if there's one thing that Kyle Crane does, it's adapt. I mean, like, my gosh, like when you think of what he was dealing with and how he was quickly sort of coming online and coming up to pace with Dying Light 1, and now you've got him much more seasoned, and he's hell-bent on revenge. So I don't think adapting is going to be his problem in this game. It's probably going to be other things. Is that a good tease? Could cut away to that, like other things, maybe pan in like real close, like, no.
No.
Other things, dun, dun, dun. What does Roger mean?
Okay, our community is super creative,
Yes.
and they did like a lot of artworks about Kyle Crane. Do you have any favorites?
Yeah, probably. And again, it's much like when you were asking, like, what's one of my favorite lines. I mean, I go to like some of the fan art can get a little creative, in maybe some of the worst possible ways. So I've probably got some favorite fan art that's out there that again I can't talk about here, and I wouldn't divulge. It's like I don't want to describe it, but no, I'm always amazed. What's really cool is to see how much the community around this game has been so passionate and so supportive, and that they do things like create fan art and share it. That's always amazing. I can't draw to save my life, so when I see people like create fan fiction or fan art, and create scenes out of this world that you guys created, that I was lucky enough to be, a voice in this game. It's staggering, and it just goes to show how much people really enjoy this community. They enjoy the world, and so they want to be a part of it, and so they create their own thing. I think that's awesome. Yeah. So how do you pick a favorite when it comes to stuff like that?
You've voiced so many characters in video games, but can you please tell us what's unique for Kyle?
For Kyle, I think that's a great sound, squeaky shoe, sorry. For Kyle, I think what's unique about Kyle Crane is kind of what I was saying earlier, that often in video games you get these unbelievable characters that are just never phased, and it's like, bullets bounce off of them, and they have the right thing to say at all times. And I mean, without saying the line, there's Kyle, why are you shouting? And it's like, when he responds with like, I'm shouting because his response is like very real in why he's yelling and why he's shouting, and it's just so there's a groundedness to Kyle Crane, even though it's an outrageous world, it's an outrageous sort of scenario, it's an outrageous thing that he's dealing with. I think what I like about him and what makes him unique as a protagonist is just that he's, even though he's doing impossible things and running and jumping and doing all this stuff, and that there's a real element to some of his reactions, and he just seems kind of like he's sort of put upon, which you don't often get in heroes. Usually they're just like fists on their hips, and they always have the perfect thing to say and that kind of thing. Kyle, he's not perfect. He doesn't get it all. He doesn't always get it right, and so that sort of real element to him, I think, is what makes him unique as far as like a lot of characters that I've played in the past. Like, he's believable in that sense. Yeah.
And I have a last question to you.
Okay.
Like, imagine I'd like to be a voice actor.
Okay.
What is your advice?
Oh my gosh, that's always, we get that question all the time as voice actors, and I honestly don't know what to say very often, other than acting is acting is acting, and we often delineate, video game voice acting versus animation voice acting versus acting versus voice acting and all that kind of stuff, and acting is acting is acting. So if you're curious about wanting to become a voice actor, go pursue acting to begin with. Go take acting classes. Go do theater. Go do musical theater. Go take dance lessons. If you're a musician, keep practicing your musical instrument. It's more just like stay curious, stay passionate, stay focused on what you're trying to achieve. But any advice that I give you right now, I've been doing this for 20 years, and it's like I go back to how I started. If I told you to do that right now, it's like they'd laugh at you. I'd be like, well, take your CD-ROM with your voice demo on it and go knock on the door of a production facility. And it's like nobody does that anymore. It's online, it's MP3. So just be curious and passionate about acting. And if you're gonna wind up getting into VO as one aspect of your acting career, you're gonna find a way. You'll find a way. It's really the final bit of advice I've been giving to people is just saying, look, you're never gonna have my career. And then people go, oh, and I go, and I'm never gonna have yours, because however I got into the business is how I got into the business, and everybody that I work with, who I'm such huge fans of, because we all are big fans of one another, they all have different stories about how they got started and how they got in. And so maybe, hopefully that's inspiring to people that you could just say, hey, you're going to find a way. You're going to be the one to figure it out, because I could tell you what to do. It won't work for you because it was what I did.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm curious to see how people, especially now, things are so different. The internet is so influential in how people get where they are. And, and it was barely a tool when I was starting. So yeah, it's, just stay curious, stay passionate, get ready for a lot of rejection, and stick with it, Yeah, you're constantly rejected.
Thank you, Roger, for your time.
Thank you, Paulina. Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching us, and stay tuned for more info about Dying Light the Beast.